Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. My guest this week is the head football coach of the North Central Cardinals, Coach Brad Spencer. But before we get to Coach Spencer, I'm going to talk about where North Central is. North Central is located in Naperville, Illinois. They got about 2,300 students. It's $57,000 before aid, $26,000 after aid. They have a 61% acceptance rate and a 69% graduation rate. Their top three majors were psychology, marketing and marketing management, and accounting. And again, you want to talk to your guidance counselor, talk to your financial aid representatives and your admissions counselors and your coaches and all these people that are going to have more information for the particular school that we're looking at. We're just trying to give you some base knowledge. Rolling into this week's show, we're sitting down with Coach Spencer. It's his job to tell his story, not mine. It's his job to tell you about his experience this past season. So without further ado, this is Coach Spencer.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk. My guest this week is the head football coach of the North Central College, Coach Brad Spencer. Coach, thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Coach. I'm going to do this the same way I do every week. I'm going to put you in the time machine. We're going to take you back to 99, 2000, and we're going to work our way forward. So my question for you is, how and why North Central?
Yeah, choosing it as a student. I'm from Naperville, so I grew up around the college quite a bit. So it was a familiar place for me. Really was I wouldn't say an easy decision, because you deal with that dynamic of, do you need to leave town to get a college experience? And fortunately, North Central had a lot of what I was looking for at the time. And what I found was, whether my parents were 5 minutes or 5 hours away, once I got away from home, I lived in the dorms all 4 years, and lived with teammates, and really enjoyed being able to still have them see me play, get home to see my brother play high school ball, and stop home on Sundays if I wanted to watch the Bears with my dad, and get a home cooked meal, that kind of thing. So it actually became a really great, I thought, advantage. And I think that's been something that, over my 20 years coaching here, I've tried to relay to, other student athletes that we recruit from Naperville. Is, Naperville is a totally different place once you're in college, and once you're looking for a job, internships, things like that. There's actually a lot here that's at your fingertips. But when you're going to high school, you don't really think about those things necessarily. But to me, I loved the area. Obviously, I've been here all my life, so there has to be something about it that I like. Yeah. I like having things at my fingertips, and being able to get to a grocery store in 3 minutes, and Walgreens in a minute, that kind of thing.
And also on the field, you had a lot of success when you graduated. I'm gonna make sure I get this right. You were the all-time leader in receptions, receiving yards, and TD receptions.
Yeah, that was so long ago that I don't. It almost doesn't seem relevant. Fortunately, so many guys that I've coached have been able to break all those records. At the time, obviously, those were the goals that I had on the field. And I think it helped me transition in my first role as receivers coach here, and have the respect of the players that I was coaching, whom I had just been playing with. But they seem, for what our guys are doing now, and how athletic our guys are, and how talented they are, it seems rather pedestrian now to look back at those records. I wouldn't even dare watch the film. I'm afraid of how unathletic I would look.
Coach, you make that move right away from player to coach, coaching a lot of the guys that you had just played with a year prior. My first question is there a difficulty when you go to that, when you go from player to coach, and you're at your alma mater? Is there any type of or what advice would you give to younger coaches that are thinking staying with their alma mater, getting their foot in that way?
Yeah, and I've actually been able to draw upon that experience quite a bit. We have quite a number of alums on our staff that, found themselves in similar situations. So, for me, I had great respect for the guys that I had played with and started coaching, and I feel like the respect was mutual. Like you said, I broke some of those records, and I was a captain, so I think the guys respected me, and they knew that I was trying to help make them the best receiver that they could be when I was coaching them. I think the hardest thing really was just having to separate the friendship part of it and not be able to go get lunch or hang out with the guys anymore. And that in an off campus type of setting, you really had to sever that part of the relationship. But at the same time, I was still seeing them every day, and you're still coaching them every day. So you're still, just like our players now today, you're still having really great relationships with those guys. And one of them, works for us now as our offensive coordinator and offensive line coach, Eric Studeman. So, you just kind of found a way to do it. And a lot of times our GAs are, forged into that situation. So it's something that I'm able to talk with them about. Our tight ends coach, younger brothers on the team right now. So that's another, similar situation, because my brother was playing for us and I was coaching him directly. Now, Coach Fairley isn't directly coaching his younger brother. But if anything, I think it can be a very positive thing as long as you both sides approach it the right way. And I think, fortunately, the young men that have been in that situation are mature. They all know that we're here for the same goal and the same reasons, the same mission. So there's not any sort of animosity between the two parties in that type of situation. We've seen it work quite a bit. In fact, we've had on our team somewhere between 25 and 30 sets of brothers come through over the last 24 years, and probably about 7 or 8 sets of twins. So it's pretty common, that family piece is pretty dynamic and pretty prevalent here. It's not out of the ordinary, I think, for guys to have to step back into that role as coaches with guys that they just played with. And, the best advice I think you can give is be yourself and be professional. And from there, it really should be okay.
Now, you spend 10 years as the wide receiver coach, and then in 15, you move up into the OC position. What was the biggest change for you, minus the whole, you're now running the entire offense instead of just running a room? What was the biggest change for you? What were some of the did you have any complications when you made that transition?
In 2015 was, my predecessor's, Jeff Thorne's, first year as head coach. And he previously was running the offense, and he was still calling it in 2015 and in 2016. And then in 2017, after a game, he came in on Sunday and he's like, "Brad, you're calling it now." And then he just walked out. But I think I was fortunate to have Jeff as a mentor in that role, where he was still running it, he was still calling it. So it kind of gave me like almost a soft opening, if you will, to what it's like to be an offensive coordinator and be in charge of the whole thing. Maybe transitioning then in 17 after a few games where it's all of a sudden, okay, I'm in charge, I'm running all the meetings, I'm making all the play calls. That might have been, that was definitely an adjustment. But again, I, felt like I had my head coach's support, and, we'd been working on the offense together for so many years at that point that, we really thought the same. So when I was taking things to him, it was, I think it was easy for us to be able to have conversation and communication about what might be good or what might be bad. I felt very comfortable going to him with, with concepts and ideas, and I felt very comfortable asking him stuff, and he could very quickly look at the film or whatever and say, yeah, that's great, or hey, why don't we do this instead?
Mhm.
Just because he had so much experience with it. And the basis of the offense was the offense that he had installed, and I had worked with him on it since, I guess it's 2004.
Yeah.
But he had a very intimate knowledge of it, and he had a very good knowledge of how to break down a defense. And so for me, I really learned, offensive football, and then also how to break down a defense from him. And so then to have him still here, in a supporting role and he was still coaching our quarterbacks. So it was just really helpful, I think. But it's obviously a lot different. I mean, every step when you go from position coach to coordinator to head coach, you're going up floors. And so your view is that much higher. And when, you truly take it over, it definitely kind of becomes your baby. And you have a lot of pride in it. You have a lot of pride in progressing, that thing, whatever it is, in this case, an offense, and making your own twists and, studying film in the off season and finding ways to, stay ahead of the trends and stay ahead of what defenses are doing. It's certainly a different, responsibility. I think, one of the things I've really loved about becoming a head coach, and I knew I would during that whole transition as it was happening, was the ability to have relationships with the entire team, not just the offense, not just the receivers and quarterbacks. And it was the same thing when I took over the offense, being able to have relationships and be able to feel like you could coach other guys other than your position group, brings me a lot of fulfillment and joy. But there's certainly a step up of, you're certainly stepping up to the big leagues, I guess, when you're starting to run an offense. And then obviously when you become a head coach, because everything under your umbrella is now your responsibility, and the buck ultimately stops with you.
Yeah.
On that side of the ball, or, as a head coach with pretty much everything. So I don't think it's something that you learn and master right away. My first boss, who was Jeff's father, John, said, the moment you think you know everything, you know nothing. And so I think you're constantly not reinventing, but you're constantly, trying to excel and progress whatever it is that you're working on, so that you're not stagnant and staying still. Which is, that becomes the fun part of it, is once you feel like you've got a little bit of a grasp on it, you can really start to make it your own. And then you start to get comfortable in what you're doing, because you're not, running things the way that the previous person was running it. You're doing it how, even if it's very similar, you're doing it in a way that you're comfortable with.
Now, Coach, was there, before we get to 2022, was there ever a thought of leaving and going to a different school?
Certainly there's certainly opportunities, certainly thoughts. Did interviews, got job offers. But there's always a number of things that I felt like kept me around. I always wanted to be the best at whatever I was doing. So if I was a receivers coach, I just wanted to be the best receivers coach in the country. If it's OC, you want to be the best OC. And now as head coach, I want to, strive every day to be the best head coach in the country. And so there was never like, I didn't start coaching here in 2004 and say, well, I hope to have his desk, at one point. I didn't even feel that way as an offensive as a receiver coach before becoming an offensive coordinator. I just wanted to do my job the best I could, and, ultimately, put those types of decisions and opportunities into God's hands, and just kind of see where they led. And, through the interviews or offers, it just never felt like I was being moved by God to move, if that makes sense. I just felt like it was more of a stay where you're at, you'll be rewarded. Stay where you're at. You're doing, my work where I want you right now. And so even if there was more money or more titles or a higher level or whatever, when you have conviction that you're in the right place, you can sleep at night. You know what I mean? And so I just, yeah, of course you have, I don't want to say ego trips, but of course you have, there's your ego is fighting it too, because it's like, okay, how high can I go? How much money can I make? And, how famous can you get? And, all the things that really don't matter. But I think you eventually, at least for me, came to a very comfortable place where it's like, I love this level. I like where I'm at. I like what I'm doing, and I'm going to enjoy every single day. And as things change, I'm going to make the best decisions that I can for me. And that's led me to stay here for 20 years.
Now, over those 20 years, would you say that your coaching philosophy has changed drastically, or has it just been, like you said, the trying to stay ahead of the curve, trying to stay ahead of what's coming, but for the most part, it's stay the course?
I've been very fortunate to, be here when we were 6-4 and be part of the build and watch John Thorne and watch Jeff Thorne, drive the ship so that we could climb to where we're at today. And that's it's a hard, grueling process that does not happen overnight, obviously. I wouldn't say my philosophy has changed, because I've always wanted to coach holistically. I've always wanted to coach, kids, which this fits with our mission, to help them become all-American men and find their passions in life. And, our goals are championships and being all-Americans. That's never changed. And my previous two bosses were very much a part of that. And a part of setting that foundation for me. I think the things that change maybe are just how you do things in terms of efficiencies, technology, obviously, and then scheme is going to change. I mean, I look at our offense from, what we did this year. We did a lot of different things than what we did in 22, just based on the personnel that we had. And then you look back to our first national title in 2019, and it's very different. It's just defenses have changed, defenses evolve. And so you can't just keep doing the same stuff. I mean, certainly there's aspects that are the same, and a lot of it might be the same, but how you get to it, whether it's with motions or shifts or things like that, might dress it up. And you continue every off season to learn, new schemes and things that can fit your talents and fit the guys that you have that year. For instance, in 2022, we had this great receiving class or group, and by game 5, all of them except for one of the starters were hurt for the rest of the year. And so we had to shift tremendously what we were doing formationally and how we were trying to get guys open. Whereas this year, we have two All-Americans, everybody's healthy at receiver. We have two All-Americans. And you saw how explosive, we were. We had running backs that were all faster than guys we've had in the past. And so you saw the explosiveness. On paper, our stats look very similar, but the efficiency this year was insane. I mean, our starters up until the third round of the playoffs, the quarterfinals, our offensive starters averaged 34 plays a game, and they're averaging 60 points a game. So, I mean, you start doing the math. If they would actually play 70 points, it went out to like 119 points a game if we keep our starters in. It's just the efficiencies at which we were doing things this year was really like nothing I've ever coached. But I don't know if, because we lose, I don't know if that story will ever really get told or seen. Certainly coaches that we play and after games would, make very generous and positive remarks to me. But I think that's where like those things will change. I don't think the foundation of who we are and our mission and how we coach kids, that's not going to change. But just how you go about doing it is, like I said, technology, young men, and also how young men, take in coaching,
Yeah.
And how they process information and the technology that we have to coach them now. I mean, it's different. Like I said, it's different than 4 years ago.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
it's
is.
different. It's different than 3 years ago, like when we were in COVID. So those things are going to keep changing. And some of the things we talk about, in terms of sideline technology that we could potentially have down the road is even more
Yeah, more advanced.
crazy. Yeah. It's really wild to be talking about having plays on, basically iWatches or having a headset in a quarterback's ear. Or, I mean, it's really just, watching film on the sideline like the NFL is able to do on iPads. Those are the things that you have to change with, I guess. But I don't think you can change who you are and what you stand for.
Coach, what brought on the change in 2022 that moved you up to the seat, the big seat?
Yeah, well, our head coach had moved on to Western Michigan as the offensive coordinator. And so that, I mean, really that was it.
Yeah.
And I was blessed to have like I said, two really good mentors for, the previous 18 years I've been coaching, and I've been able to, have my hands in the dirt with everything here as well. And they were very generous with giving me responsibility. So a lot of the facets of the program I had responsibility over at some point during that time. And so transitioning to head coach, obviously there's a million different adjustments, the nice adjustments. Though the things that I didn't have to worry about adjusting to was, I'm on the same campus, I'm with the same staff, with the same players, the administration, how things work on campus here. We obviously, the foundation's been set. The kind of the ship was already sailing, if that makes sense. And obviously there's going to be different, not to be like cliche, but different headwinds and things that are changing that we have to deal with now that maybe we weren't dealing with. Similar to how, like, if you're a head coach in 20 and 21, you're dealing with really just nutty situations with COVID and the challenges there. I did not envy head coaches at that point at all. So, I know I walked into a good situation, and then from there, it's just, kind of owning it and making it your own and doing things the way that you do it. But like I said, having great coaches and great players, none of that changed. So I feel very fortunate for
that. Just to give, for those of you that aren't familiar, in the last 2 years, you guys have gone 29-1, 9-1 in the tournament. Last year, 14-1, 9-0 in the conference. Runners, national runner-ups. The Gigliardi Award winners on the team. 17 all CCIW players. 8 all American. 8 All-Americans. 8 academic All-Americans. I mean, you guys are really, it's not just on the field, it's in the classroom as well. Let's talk a little bit. Put me in the room as we're going through this recruitment time. Put me in the room with you and a recruit. What are you looking for aside from a ball player?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you certainly have to acknowledge that we have some really talented young men.
Yeah.
You're not going to win at the level that we're winning without that. But beyond that, I mean, certainly, we like to talk about the things that we feel like are, making our guys different. And then talking about, hey, if these are the things that you want, this is what we have in a college football program. And so you're things like opportunity, things like the culture, things like coaches who are going to help you figure out your future, things like the academic support that we have. Those are all the things that we talk about. One of the biggest things I try and stress to 17 and 18-year-olds, because I imagine doing it for my kids myself, is my own kids, is deciding what you really want and what you're looking for, and what's important to you, and then putting yourself in a place where people align with those initiatives. You know, one of the worst things that you can do is align yourself with people that aren't looking to do the same things as you. And so we're pretty clear about kind of what we're about, the standards that we have, the work ethic that you're going to need here, you know, and how we're going to hold you to those standards on the football field, in the classroom, and then also in the community. And then I think also talking about the importance of, especially in today's day and age, you know, finding guys that want to be elite in more than just football, you know, guys that want to be elite in more than just academics. And our former famous cross country coach, author, I don't know how many national titles he won, some insane amount, but he used to always say that athletics is very curricular. And, you know, I believe that it's part of their experience, and 40% or right around for our undergrads here at North Central are athletes. And so athletics is a really big part of North Central College. And I think to let guys know that we expect you to come in and want to be great in all aspects of your life. If you just want to come in and be a great football player, you're going to get your butt kicked here.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the reality of it. And I'm not saying you have to have a 4.0. Like, I wouldn't get a 4.0 in some of the papers we have. It's crazy how intelligent our young men are, but you know, that's where kind of we come in as coaches and mentors to help these guys figure out, okay, I like business. Okay, what do you like about it? Well, I like the numbers part of it. Okay, do you like adding the numbers, or do you like managing wealth? I like managing wealth. Okay, well, you might want to go, you know, into finance.
Okay.
You know, helping them figure that out and then use the resources that we have is what we're here for. You know, we really feel like as long as we're accomplishing our mission of producing all-American fathers, husbands, and teammates, that we'll continue to have a chance to accomplish our goals of all-Americans, you know, all conference players, Glardy Trophy winners, and national championships, as you mentioned. But I just, you know, I tell every kid, I'm going to give you everything I got, and I'm always going to be honest with you, you know. And I just think with today's, I think that resonates with young men. I think they want to know, you know, why they're doing stuff. They want to know, okay, well, why are we doing this drill? Why are we doing this lift? You know, why am I ahead of this guy, but I'm not ahead of this guy? You know, and I feel like just being honest with them, and if you built relationships with them, which to me, the relationship piece of it is just the foundation of everything for us, you're able to be really honest with them, and they know that you're doing it for the betterment of their experience. You know, I tell the guys, hey, those national title rings are the same size, color, weight as for everybody. You know, it's not any different for me as it is for our athletic trainer, as it is for, you know, a fifth string linebacker. We all have different responsibilities and different jobs that we have to carry out, sure. But everybody here is a part of it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important for us to be able to give kids the type of environment and the type of culture, but then also playing opportunities that they deserve, because like I tell them, like I can't guarantee you that you're going to start. I can't guarantee you you're going to be an All-American D end, and I can't guarantee you a national title. But if I can guarantee you how you'll be treated and the culture and the opportunities you're going to have athletically and academically, then I think we're doing the right thing and accomplishing our mission.
Coach, this next question, you answered at a press conference, I believe the first week of the tournament. It was about the expand of the playoff system as it sits today and where we need to go. I've asked everybody since, I think right around the time you gave that answer, I started asking this question. is it an expansion of the playoffs? Is it an expansion of the regular season? Do we still need to fine tune what we're going to do? How do we get the best Division III football teams into that tournament for it, going forward? Obviously, there were some teams left off this year that I think blew a lot of people's minds when the brackets came out, and so I'd like to hear where you sit now as we're in the off season.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think every year there's teams that are left out that shouldn't be left out. So I think it's more an issue of how we evaluate and how we calculate who gets in. That's the issue. It's not so much the people who are placing teams in the bracket, because those folks on committees have rules from the NCAA in terms of travel, qualifications. You know, now I might not always agree with some of those decisions that they make. I'd still have a hard time explaining some of the travel that we had this year, even using the metrics that are used. But you know, fortunately, I've been able to have some really great conversations with Matt Moore and with JP Williams and some other folks from the playoff committee, and really just ask a lot of questions, and they've been very open. It seems very possible that we will be looking at a expanded bracket even as soon as next year, with a new evaluation system that is automated. And so this system would potentially basically rate everybody in the country that's playing football at Division III level, you know, and then expand it to 40, make the playoff one more week, you know, because there's some parameters that are realities. You're not going to make the regular season longer and ever get that passed, because it's more money for every single school. You're never going to get it passed to take away a bye week, because there's a group of folks that think bye weeks help people get healthier, and then there's another group of people that can find science and data that says you actually have more injuries after bye weeks. So, you know, that's not going to happen. So then the answers seem, from what I understand, to be, well, let's make the national championship, you know, a week after Christmas in January, and let's expand to 40 teams. There'll be a number of teams that have bye weeks in the first week. And then from what I'm told, if this system was in place this past year, every single team that was in the top 25 would have been in the playoff. And the hard thing to remember is that it is a regional playoff. It's not a national playoff. And so those national rankings, the national rankings, even by the AFCA, are not taken into account, or aren't supposed to be. So I think that's a hard thing for people, because everybody looks at the D3football.com rankings, AFCA rankings, and, you know, you have a team sitting at top 10, top 15, multiple in the top 25 that don't get in, as they're kind of as if they don't really understand, you know, the system and the regional rankings, going, wait, how is this a national playoff with 32 teams and there's, you know, 9 teams in the top 25 not in? How does that, or 8, whatever it was?
Yeah.
So for me, it's just, you know, how do we, for the, you know, sake of the best tournament possible, and for the sake of, you know, student athletes at these schools getting what they've worked for and deserved, how do you get truly the best teams in? Now, it's always going to be, unless you have a group of people sitting and watching every single game around the country that have extensive football knowledge, there's always going to be
somebody,
data and analytics. There's always going to be things that are not going to be approved by someone. Like that's just, there has to be some constraints at some point. So, you know, I think where people get caught up, and I know where, you know, maybe I had some disagreement this year, was just the strength of schedule thing, regional rankings, and then what that did in terms of where we landed and, where it put us on the road. But I mean, the truth of the matter is those are all, none of that stuff really matters. We're in the playoff. Those are all excuses. Let's go play. Unfortunately, that's how our kids and our staff took it.
Yeah.
But I think as a head coach, and I'm not on any of these committees, but, as a head coach at a prominent school, you have to be able to have a voice to go, wait a second, like we need to promote change here. Like, it's time to change. And if for nothing else, like, we're the only sport in NCAA that is not meeting the qualifier for playoffs based on the amount of teams we have.
Yeah.
And so if you think about if that was happening in certain other sports, you would have major lawsuits. I mean,
yes,
think about it. That's just being, I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
And so for it to have gone this long, it's just time to change. Will it be perfect? No. I'm sure it's going to take a couple of years to get everything kind of, synced up, as I'm told, with, changing the dials, if that makes sense, on, what things are more important to others, like road wins or home wins or beating a team by 50, beating a team by 0. Because it is hard to compare teams when there's not crossover.
Yeah.
But also when you have a system that's set up where strength of schedule is so important, and then you have leagues that have no non-conference games, or like we have one non-conference game,
yeah,
our strength of schedule is going to be essentially flat. And so other leagues that have to potentially play 3 or 4 non-conference games, well, they can easily boost their strength of schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what sent us on the road supposedly to lacrosse, where we're 9-0 in D3. They're 7-1 in D3. I'm told we went because strength of schedule.
And I will tell you, we on this show had a conversation the entire playoff tournament for you guys. Because we pick after the games, we pick, the brackets down, and we pick each game. And the conversation I had to explain to my fiance, who's our co-host on the last segment, North Central's not a 1 seed. They're going to have to go on the road, and it just.
Yeah,
there
really,
wasn't a way to explain it either, because like you said, 7-1, 9-0. It's just not.
Yeah, and that's no
slight to anyone. It's just
UW lacrosse is a phenomenal football team, phenomenal. But even me and Coach Janice joked about it at the meeting on Friday night before the game. I think the first thing he said to me was, "I have no idea where we're playing here, but I'll take it." And I just kind of laughed and was like, "Hey, we're just happy to be playing." But I do, like, again, you have to, on one hand, have your coaching hat on for your team and just say, well, whatever, let's go. Mm-hmm. And that's how you're going to do it. But at the same time, I think as an advocate for the sport, you also have to be able to say, look, this is what it is. We're going to live with it. We're going to play with it. It is what it is. But going forward, how do we make it better? And I felt like that's kind of where we were at. I mean, at the end of the day, and this is what we tell our kids, you control your attitude, your effort, and your response. Anything outside of that, there's really no point worrying about it. But I will say, in that 5 weeks, I got so many emails, calls, text messages asking things, what's going on. It was almost like a distraction, to be honest, just because it's like, look, we just want to play football. We're going to play the number 4 team, the number 5 team, the number 6 team, number 3 team in the country just to get the national title. Okay. I had confidence in our team to beat all those teams. And like, really at the end of the day, that's what it's about. I had confidence that our guys could, win those games, and nothing really else matters, I guess. Other than, just, hey, we've got to all kind of, as college coaches, promote, a bigger, better playoff. And hopefully that'll happen this year.
So as we're here into 2023. We're after post the 2023 season, but we're now talking about the 2023 season. Can you talk to me a little bit about the Stag Bowl? That was back and forth game.
Yeah.
There really, to me, there were two plays that stuck out. There was the fourth down touchdown passing attempt in the end zone on I believe the first drive, and then the 2-point conversion on the last score.
Right.
Have you had it now that you've had time? The dust has settled. What are your thoughts on how that game played out? Those two, not so much the first one, but the 2-point conversion at the end of the game. What went into that decision? Just talk to us about the game.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a great opponent in Cortland, and they were, you want to be peaking at the right time, and they definitely were. I mean, you saw that even in their last two games, the quarterfinal and semi games, winning those by pretty handily, scores. Thought they played really well. Their quarterback, was a stud, and offensively for us, I thought really, if you're going to look at it from an offense, defensive, special teams, where could we be better? We had two drives. We get ourselves inside the red zone, and penalties and things like that take us outside the red zone, then we don't score. We had another one where, running back had a long run. He gets kind of tackled from behind, which I don't know if I've ever seen Joe Sacco get tackled from behind. We only get 3 points out of it, so to me, it's our own fault.
Okay.
Could have gone into halftime up 21-3 or 21-0. I kind of thought that, they were gifted that 3 points a little bit at the end of half. Our DN got tackled. They didn't call a flag. And then we get a flag on a late hit. Coincidentally, the penalties in that game were 8-3 against us. 2 of the 3 that they called on Cortland were offside, so they have to call them.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at it, there's another thing you can look at and, say, we had some calls go against us, or we were undisciplined, or whatever you want to say. But the fact is that the penalties did not go our way that night. But I just thought offensively, we left points on the board. Defensively, we struggled mightily in the second half. I think we struggled to stop them once in the second half. So, once we get the ball back, to me, I'm thinking, okay, we score, we go for 2 and get it. We have to stop them once. If we score and kick the extra point, we're going to have to stop them twice. And so you just kind of do that math, and you look at how the game's going at that point. Their offense was super hot and playing really well that second half. They had 3 points in the first half, and they're on fire in the second half. I just felt like we have the ability, as we're the top offense in the country, to get 3 yards. I like the play that we called for the first 2-point conversion. They called timeout, which is a great move by their coaching staff. Do I wish I could have called a different play for that second one, or called timeout and played that game back and forth? Yeah, but I didn't want to call a timeout if we had to stop them. I wanted to keep the timeouts, if that makes sense. I think we had 2. Just maybe go back and, call another play. But that's totally a Monday morning armchair quarterback, hindsight's 2020, because, we've run that play, we get hats on hats, and our quarterback runs in. Everybody goes, oh, genius. You put the number 1 offense out there, you put it in the Glardy Trophy winner's hands. Duh. And that was part of the thinking too, is, well, I can march a freshman kicker out there to either win or tie or lose us a national title, or I can put the number 1 offense in the country and the best player in the country out there. And so I'm choosing the best player in the country and the best offense in the country. And that decision, honestly, the second they scored and we got the ball back, I'd already made up my mind. So it wasn't a it wasn't and we only had like 2 or 3 plays. Like we scored so fast.
Yeah, it wasn't a very long drive. You guys
Mhm.
go bang right down.
Yeah.
But
And
then
then
my question for you on film, it looked
Mhm.
as if it's just a hell of a play from the linebacker of Cortland, kind of
and they
getting
did a
by
great
the
job.
blocker and
Yeah, they bumped over a little bit to that boundary side, which made our angles a little bit tough. Um, and that's where you got to give them credit for, being able to do that, whether they're keying in on a running back's positioning or, our formation or, a gut feeling. I mean, we hadn't run many 2-point conversions this year. So it's not like they had mega stats or data on that.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you do as much as you want to. I think as coaches, you naturally want to look at a situation, at least I do, and want to say, okay, what can I do next time to be better? At the same time, you have to give them credit and give their players credit and their coaching staff credit for their game plan, how they fought, how they played, second half they played, and then the play that they made on the 2-point conversion. Kids scraping over the top or scraping underneath and making a play. I mean, things always look great on a board, right? I mean, the last guy with the chalk wins.
Yeah.
So you can sit there and go like, oh yeah, we got this blocked and it's all drawn up perfect and it's great. But kids still have to make plays. And so you give them credit for that. And, as I said earlier, okay, well, let's worry about our attitude, effort, and response here for the next 7-8 months. And let's see where we're at come September, 14th at Aurora. So, I mean, obviously that's one that you wake up every morning thinking about. I mean, anybody who's been in athletics anybody who's been in athletics has obviously lost a game like that, or, played in a game like that where you lose it at the end and it's going to, eat at you a bit. But I think it's better to, instead of sulking in it, it's better to just say, okay, well, here's the areas in the entire game that we could have been better. And then this wouldn't have even been a factor. And that's just how I prefer to look at it. Because the reality is there's, 100 and some other 150 to 180 other plays in the game. It's hard to just boil it down to one play and say, well, everything just goes on that. But if you leave a game to one play, anybody can win. That's part of it too. And, like I said, I think just looking at it from, okay, where could we have been better in all 3 phases so that we're not in that position, is the right way to go about it. But you also look at it and go, okay, when we're in that situation again, here's some things we'd like to do as well.
Now, you hinted it's a long off season, a little bit shorter of an off season for you guys in Cortland than anybody else in the country,
Right.
but it's still a long off season. What are the goals? What are the expectations? And how is recruitment going here in 2024?
Yeah, it's going great. I mean, recruiting you're doing year round. So, when we get back from Salem, it's, have Christmas and then you're starting to get kids on campus. Again, that, a lot of them have already been on campus, but, you're starting to finalize, those types of things. This year's a little bit different in that financial aid doesn't come out until March. So official aid packages are like a month and a half behind, and that's for every college. But recruiting's been going great. If I look tired, that's probably why, because it's you're doing it all the time. But we've been having great visits throughout the week and great overnight weekends. We're right where we want to be and really excited about the class we've got committed so far. We're probably about halfway there at this point. And we'll be, it's crazy how fast you're back on the field. I mean, we're back on the field for spring ball in 45 days. So it's really back on you quick. And then the guys are out of school by May 1. And, then you're recruiting and you got camp season and then you're prepping for the fall. Like it's just it just goes fast. It really does. We're fortunate that, we've been able to do it for the last 4 years. So I think you learn something every single year and how to be, a little bit more efficient in, whether it's the turnaround into the off season and lifting, or whether it's, the recruiting part of it, or getting ready for spring ball, whatever it might be. You get a little bit better at it. So hopefully we'll continue to have plenty of opportunities, to perfect this routine. But it's been really going great. We obviously have some spots. We got to replace some guys. We lose our, top 2 receivers that were both All-Americans for us. We lose our center, who is an All-American and Remington Award winner, and our right tackle as well. So we bring back 3 of our 5 linemen. Quarterback comes back, our tight ends are back, our running backs are all back. On the defensive line, we return 2 starters. Linebacker, we return our starters. In the defensive backfield, we have to, find some replacements. We lose 3 or 4. So receiver and DB is going to be a phenomenal battle throughout spring and then in camp, because so many guys are going to be vying for jobs. And we've got some really talented young guys that can really run. So it just becomes a matter of, how does their off season go in the weight room right now, during this phase, and then how does it go in the summer, just as they're trying to put on a little bit of weight, but really excited about it. We've got a great group of young men, great group of captains, and great group of seniors. It'll be one of our largest senior classes ever, because it's the last year of 5th years. And then you have your natural 4th years, that came in 2021. So the more seniors, the better. John Thorne always said that, my first boss. So, what I've told them, when we announced our captains a couple of weeks ago was, first and foremost, seniors, you're all captains, you're all leaders, and you might be a captain of this lifting group, you might be a captain of this part of the locker room, or you might be a captain of this position group or this part of the position group, or you might be a captain, of this special teams unit. But our best teams, the teams that have won national titles, they've always had really strong, if you want to call it, support cast, but guys who own, their piece of the pie, who maybe aren't the All-American or the All-Conference player. I think back to all kinds of guys that we've had that, were like that, names that, people might not know, like Garrett Fiducia, or, there's Spencer Eversole, and, other guys that are running down on kickoffs and, running through people and blocking guys on special teams. And, even guys are just great glue guys in the locker room, and, get great guys that are always holding everybody to the standard. You need that. Like, it doesn't do any good to have a teammate that just wants to hide in the shadows, and just kind of play his role. That type of player is really useless in this program. You need people that are going to own their piece of the pie, and have a say in it. And so, to really implore that group, especially being such a large group, I think is really important. I mean, if you're looking at guys, that have started for 2 or 3 years that aren't captains, well, you've certainly earned the right to open your mouth and to act like a captain. And we need you to do that. And then we'll see how the rest of the offseason goes. If there's any other guys that we feel like kind of break through as captain material through our leadership training and stuff like that. But I think we're all just really excited to get back on the field in spring, even though it's such a, you're not really doing a ton of real football, because of the rules with the pads and everything, but you still get a lot of 7-on-7 and throwing and stuff like that, and 1-on-1s. And we're also taking our team overseas to Ireland. So we have about half our team going and doing that. So the last time we took one of those trips was in 2019 before our first national title. So excited for the group to do that and see what that might, produce, just in terms of, we're big on having shared experiences for our guys off the football field, away from the locker room. And, that's certainly a 9-day shared experience. So it's a pack. You just kind of go from one thing to the next. You really there's not a whole lot of time to breathe or relax. But I think, we're all kind of wound that way. We like that. We like the competition of it. So, as a staff, I know we're all really excited. I think our players are too. And I think what's most positive is, in our first team meeting back in January, it just felt like the guys, what we were telling them and the things we were saying we need to do to, take the next steps. It just felt like it really resonated with them, and they got it. It made sense, and the out, but the what you're taking away from a loss, and what as coaches we thought we needed to work on. It felt like our young men were really on board with it, and it was resonating with them. So, as a head coach, that makes you feel good about it, at the start of it, but it's not how you start a thing, it's how you finish a thing. So, we'll talk to me once we get to August or maybe December or something like that. We'll see how things are going. But if I didn't wake up every day excited about the guys we got coming back, I'd be a fool.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. I watched you guys a lot this season. Specifically, you and I started having a conversation back and forth, and we weren't able to make it happen last season for this show. But I will say this as a football player and as someone who took pride in being on the defensive side of the ball, I'm really glad I don't got to see a Sacco on a Saturday afternoon, because that kid runs hard. He is every run is hard.
Yeah, he's a good one. And Sean, and then you put in Chuck, who's 6'3" and 215. That's quite the change up from Joe and Sean. But it's the guys up front, the Jeskis and Pryors and, Fairley and those guys that are coming back that, make us special. And, you gotta keep those guys happy. So whatever it takes to keep the O-line and D-line healthy and happy is kind of my main goal.
Coach, this is what I like. This part of the show is my favorite. I would say it's become my favorite part. It's 5 random questions. They don't have anything to do with football. They're just for you.
Oh boy. Here we go.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Wherever my family's at.
Okay.
So far it's been Naperville.
I was gonna say, I think I know the answer to this one.
Yeah.
What's the most important lesson you've learned over your career?
Wow. I think you're just learning your lessons, when you make mistakes, or if things don't turn out how you want, or if they do turn out how you want, how to make them better. I just think learn your lessons it's simple, and there's nothing special about it. It was a mentor of mine had a mentor of his tell him that in a hard time. And I think you just got to learn your lessons. As a coach, I think something that I learned early on, fortunately from, both Coach Thorns, was you have to coach who you are. You have to be who you are. And I just started watching the Hard Knocks with the Dolphins, and those guys are who they are. They just they don't apologize for it. They are who they are. So I think that was something that coach told me early on was, hey, you don't have to coach like me, just coach however you coach. I know that's something I encourage our guys to do as well.
It's interesting. I would have never thought about that being a like the lesson, learn your lessons. That one makes sense, but I would have never thought that you had to, I lost my train of thought as I was trying to get that out there.
Yeah, well, I think it's easy, when you're a young coach, to look at your head coach or your coordinator and think, oh, that's how I have to coach.
Yeah.
That's how I have to coach kids, or, that's how I have to communicate. And, one of the advantages that young coaches have is just the relatability to the players. And you don't want to take that away.
No.
By saying you need to put up these walls or you need to act a certain way. I think it's better just to, as long as you don't have somebody flying off the rails, I think it's good to let people, coach how they coach.
Coach, if you weren't coaching, what would you be doing and why?
I'd be retired and a stay-at-home dad and let my wife support us.
I like that.
There'd be a little bit of golf in there.
Side question: where'd you meet your wife?
So our faith coordinator, who's a lifelong friend of ours, David Johnson, actually introduced us at a church that we all went to at the time.
What's the best compliment you've ever received?
Probably anything my wife tells me.
It's a good answer. That's a good answer. The other side of compliments, what's the best insult you've ever received?
Well, best insult.
I will say for 29 games, there can't be many fans that were yelling at you.
Right. And there's usually like a group of fans that when we come on the field, they're like, Coach Spencer, score 100, score 70, which I really appreciate. But there was, I got a voicemail after our game this last year, which made me laugh. At the end of my voicemail, my office number, it says, you reach Coach Spencer's office, blah, 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 I'll leave a message. Thanks and go Cards. And this person left me a message and said, go Cards. Yeah, right. Kick the extra point, you dummy.
Wow.
I started dying laughing. I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. They did the thing so there's no return number. They didn't leave their name. And so it's like, well, okay. How bad do you really mean?
Credit on that one.
If you can't put your name on it, I'm not going to take you serious.
So you can have credit. It's a good insult, but you didn't take credit for the insult. So it's kind of like, we can't give you a grade.
Yeah.
And then our last question, we do this on every show. Coach, was there a question that you were expecting? And if so, how would you have answered it?
I think the question I always get is just how in today's day and age of college football have you stayed in one place for 20 years? And we kind of, went over that. But that's the question that people seem to want to ask a lot, particularly whether it's interviews or podcasts or ESPN or the local networks when we get in the playoffs, or, recruit families ask that a lot too. Which makes you appreciate that, like, they've done their homework, they've looked on the website, they know that, I've been around here for a while. And I think they're surprised then when I tell them, well, I've actually been around here twice as long as that, because I grew up on the campus. So I think that's the one that it seems like continues to come up. Obviously people recently want to know about the 2-point conversion, and, you have a lot of people that, like I said, it's like everybody except for that one voicemail is like, right call, I'm like, here's my data analytics on why you made the right call. I'm like, thank you, I appreciate it. And I had my reasons, some of which I'll share and some of which I won't. But I think we kind of covered that too. So.
Well, Coach, I wanted to take this moment to say thank you very much for joining us.
My
for
pleasure.
Those of you that don't know, we go into this next segment. It's called Overtime with Serenity Brown. We're in the process of teaching her football piece by piece, so that when we go into our picking of the games, we're not just looking at a board and going, well, I know Carlo talked about North Central and I've heard their name, so we're going to go with that. And then I like this team. Do you know anything about them? No, I don't, but I like them. I got a gut feeling about them. So this has been Coach Spencer, the head football coach at North Central. And we'll be right back, Chuckleheads.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? Welcome back to Overtime with Serenity Brown. That's Serenity Brown. I am Carlo Guadagnino. It's been a while. We've had some things going on. We had some personal things going on. We had some illness. I kind of messed my back up there for a little bit and still not completely right. So we're back. We wanted to come on and talk about what's coming in the next episode. We're not going to cover very much this week, football-wise. You wanted to learn about the officiating, the rules and whatnot. We are bringing on
different flags and such.
We're going to bring on an official next week. He's going to talk to us during that segment, during this segment, about offensive penalties, defensive penalties, special teams penalties, unsportsmanlike conducts, etc. So make sure you have your questions ready. We also want to say thank you to everybody that's been a part of the last 199 episodes, going on 200 here next week. So thank you very much to everyone, from the Pittsburgh sports personalities, the baseball players that we've had, the 47 Division III coaches that we've had, all the Bethany alumni that did the show for us. I just wanted to take a minute and say thank you. I appreciate it. And who knows, maybe we'll be here, sitting here for another 100. We got a couple more at least. Do you have anything?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, make sure you check out I hope you checked out and enjoyed this week's episode. I hope you check out next week's episode, especially with it being kind of a big deal for us. It's the 200th. So we'll see you next week, Chuckleheads.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.